Hello there, this is Nina, and we are here for the 27th episode of the Audible Weed Walk. We have had such unusual rain this year. It seems, according to the record, Tamil Nadu had received 138 millimeters of rain in January 2021. The only time it was slightly more rainy in January was in 1921, exactly 100 years ago. Then at that time it had received 41 millimeter of rain, 141.2 millimeter to be precise. In several podcasts, I have highlighted why we should in general keep off from eating greens during the rains, and if and when we eat them, to be discerning and eat them cooked and not in raw in any form. So eat them cooked, warm, hearty, that is nourishing. But in general, thumb rule is to avoid. Very important. But then the rain apparently stopped. In the unique weather pattern that Tamil Nadu has due to its monsoon pattern, this is the second half of the winter. Bright golden sun, lightness in the air, nippy evenings. At last, we got to enjoy a bit of the winter before heading straight into the summer. I was all excited that the greens that's to be eaten. I was going to announce, go ahead folks, eat your greens to your heart content, and now that they are fresh with the new sprouts after the rain, some are already flowering too. Enjoy your time weeding, soaking in the abundance, and pick some along the way, but put in your warm charu or soup, rasam or what have you. Perhaps you could also pick some young ones and a few of that add to the fresh green salad that you have been missing. We are supposed to ease into the eating greens with bitters, not just the weedy seasonal ones, but bitters in vegetables and not so wild leaves also. A few comes to mind like Thuduvalai or Solanum trilobatum, fresh in this season, have been batter frying into thin tempura like crispies. Our heightened digestibility aided by the season in this late part of winter as we get ready to face the summer allows us to indulge in this. Of course, one can put them in rasam, in any other soup. Other bitters are, of course, bitter gourd, leaves of parijata or the shefali. That, if you are eating, traditionally only 1 or 2 leaves are added to the soup. And it's an excellent for deworming and detox. So I was getting into the greens. Thuduvalai, Musumusukai, which is Mukhia madaraspatana, yet another plant from the book which is now in abundance. A few have been sharing how they are cooking their wild greens. I'm finding them inspiring. Cultural anthropologist and researcher Deepa Reddy, who lives in this area, shared that she made something called Vanchira Charu, which means soup, and a curry using the medley of wild greens. What she did is she slow cooked beans that are local variety of the long beans, and she basically shelled the beans to take the beans, and slow cooked it with a medley of wild uncultivated greens. And then when that is done, she used a little bit of the crushed beans and the liquid to make the charu or the soup. The remaining of the beans could be used to make a kuta-like vegetable curry. They are usually cooked together in pair, she told. Makes sense, no? With the same effort, you can actually get 2 amazing dishes. I was inspired to follow some recipes, try some new ones on my own, and patiently hoping soon I'll get to eat some of them raw also in salad. Did not happen. It was just hoping, dreaming you can say. One of my all-time favorite salad mix with the wild greens are the sweeter of the wild greens. Sweeter means they are not really sweet to taste, but just not bitter. This includes leaves like wild passion fruit leaves, tons of Gangetic primrose leaves, some shiny bush, and some young shoots of alternantheras of various kinds that are grown here, and a few flowers and leaves of the purslane. Add to the mix some ripe fruits of Mantakali or the Solanum nigrum and villosum, some ripe ground cherries, all wild and all ready. A little bit of tomatoes, a salad dressing of your choice, and some coarsely ground pepper, and voila, you have the most amazing salad. We did not get there. I was excited that at last, in this podcast, I will say, yes, you can now eat the wild greens. And maybe a few times, sometimes you can eat them raw also. But nope, could not do. It rained yesterday night, folks. It was cloudy and grey and gloomy, and it is like that even right now. Pradeep Johns, who is better known as Tamil Nadu weatherman, who I follow, tells us that we are in for a phenomenally wet February. It seems in February 2002, this is before my time, there was a flood in this area. The indications are we are heading for something like that. May not, we may not be flooded right here, but wet it will be. Now I'm bummed. I'm having weather blues, and I want to sing "Rain, Rain, Go Away." Bees and butterflies want to play, and we had enough for the day. Talking about blues, read an article recently which talks about our fascination with that color. Color blue, which happens to be the rarest in nature and owes its existence to the bee vision. That intrigued me. In an article by the author Adrienne Dyer, points out that about 1/3 of our food depends on the insect pollination. However, the world population of bees and other insects are declining, potentially due to climate change, habitat fragmentation, agricultural practices, and other human-induced causes. The capacity of flowering plant to produce blue color is linked to land use, how intensely it is used. This also includes human-induced factors like applying fertilizers, grazing, and mowing. All these factors actually reduces the frequency of blue flowers. Imagine, if there are no blue flowers, there's obviously the bees are not too attracted to the place. The author did a survey to find out the relative frequencies of the blue flowers compared to other colors, and found that among flowers which are pollinated without the intervention of bees or other insects, absolutely none were blue. But when we looked at flowers that need to attract bees and other insects, then we started seeing some blues. Of course, to remember, blue is rare also due to the constraint of our vision. Some flowers, which to us perhaps appears whitish or some kind of a tinge of mauve, actually to the bees it looks bluish. So they are attracted to those also. If you look around, there are tons of Gangetic primrose now blooming all over, and they actually comes in violet, blue, white combination colors. They must be actually be very attractive to the bees or other insect pollinators. It is evident that the blue flowers evolved for enabling efficient pollination. Even then, blue flowers are relatively rare, suggesting that it is difficult for the plant to produce such colors and may be a valuable marker for the plant pollinator fitness in the environment, which means it's actually costly for the flower energetically to produce the blue coloration to attract insects. But they still do that because it's a sure bet. It points out that environments that are difficult, such as high altitude, where the plants adopt a strategy of synchronized flowering. For example, we have heard about 12 year cycle of plants flowering altogether. In our nearest is Western Ghats. Western Ghats, which is also known as Nilgiris, gets its name from this flower, wildflower called Neela Kurunji, Strobilanthes kunthiana. That gives the name Nilgiris, or the Blue Mountain. It's still blue. And that blue actually has a synchronized flowering, and perhaps it is because to attract the pollinators, for sure. I mean, not just with the mass. With synchronous flowering allows the plants to have one big flower in one big mass, and therefore be attractive to the insects, but also with the color. Same is observed in other harsh environments, such as mountains of the Himalayas. Blue flowers were more common than expected. It seems that tough environments, plants have to invest heavily to attract the few bees they might be there. So blue flowers does the trick. As I walked out to come to this podcast, I noticed a carpet of dwarf or slender dwarf morning glory, Evolvulus alcinioides, under my feet. This is actually the plant that looks like miniature of the flowering hedge plant, a favorite hedge plant that mother calls hope. This is one of the sacred flowers, the small one, this dwarf Evolvulus alcinioides, the wild one, is actually one of the sacred flowers, named as one of the Dasha Pushpam, one of the 10 sacred flowers in Kerala. These amazingly beautiful and highly medicinal plants are perfect blue and totally wild, reminding us day in and day out the need to notice, honor, and protect them in order to protect our vegetables and crop patches in the face of the climate change and the strange weather patterns like we are experiencing. We will explore this more about pollination and contribution of the wild plants in our next podcast. Until then, stay well and stay safe.